Alright, let's do a quick walk around video of my 65 Volvo 1800S. Real quick, I'm apologizing up front. This is going to be a little shaky because I'm doing it with a GoPro, but it's all I have. And I want to try and give you guys as much detail and information as possible. So I'm going to try and show you some things, maybe some of the chips, scratches, defects, and stuff like that on the car here. Let's start out at the front. You look inside the grill there, and the brake booster has been moved up front. That's because the original Girling booster was a little bit less than reliable, I would say. That's a Lockheed booster, which doesn't fit in the space that the old Girling was. It is an upgrade, and it's a good place to put it. It just looks a little bit unusual, but it works perfectly fine. And you can also see the air conditioning evaporator and the the condenser and the two condenser fans there. Also on front, I've got two Marshall fog lights. They are held on with clamp-on brackets. There are no holes in the bumper, so if the winning bidder on the car doesn't like the fog lights, then I would be more than happy to keep them and put them on my TR6. Moving around the car, the tires are new as of 2014. Paint was done, I'd have to go back in my look in the write-up, I think it was 2001. There are some defects in the paint down here at the bottom. These are not rust bubbles, these are drips. I'm assuming that when they were painting the car and they went to turn the gun upside down, it spit a little bit. This right here is a chip. The jack point is right behind there, and that was my fault. That was me pulling the jack out from underneath the car before it was fully retracted. The body seams on the car were filled. The previous owner, when I asked about the body seams when I was buying it, the previous owner said, "Why would you want to look at ugly body seams?" So there's that. Moving around the back of the car, I hope you can see that the car really does, from being a 12-year-old paint job, the car really holds a shine nicely. The paint is in very good shape, except for the defects that I'm going to note here. The bumpers, front and back, are stainless replacements, stainless reproductions. Headlights were rebuilt. You can see I'm going to try and get an angle here. There is a bit of a fitment issue with the trunk lid. The way it looks to me is like someone closed it pretty forcefully on a overstuffed suitcase. It's got a bit of a bow on the driver's side that is not there on the passenger side. You see a pretty good gap on the passenger side. So there's a bit of a bow in the trunk lid. Honestly, I didn't want to do anything about it. I was afraid of cracking the paint or something like that. So it is what it is. Looking in the trunk here, original spare wheel. It's got the original octagon hold down clamp, which are really hard to find. Spare tire cover has seen better days, but it is the original one. They're available for about $60. That was one of the things I was like, well, not really worth the $60, I'd leave it original. Tire iron. This car, it has the original scissor jack and the correct T-bar hold down. And this car is actually one of a few that were made. The 1800S had a different style jack handle. This car is one of very few that were made using leftover Jensen jack handles, what they call the red handles. So that is actually correct for the car, even though it doesn't necessarily look it. Moving around the side, and I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a shade over here, but it is what it is. Got some chips along the door edge, which is fairly normal for 12-year-old paint. The tires, or I'm sorry, the wheels. We already talked about the tires. The wheels have some chipping in them. I honestly don't know if it's the original finish or not, or if they were repainted at some point, but they're not perfect. They do have the original trim rings on them, which are also very hard to find, if you can find them. All four of them are present. Let's see. I did take some pictures of this area here. Three more, I should say, of those spits from the paint gun. This, however, is the only bubble on the car. This just showed up, oh geez, I would say the first time I noticed it was January. So that's a little bit of a bubble there. Let's see here, moving around. Let's take a look in the back. Dome lights work. Back seat upholstery is perfect. Reproduction luggage belts installed. I did put seat belts in the back because I do have 2 kids, even though they no longer fit in the back of this car and really didn't fit in the first place. Anyway, the carpet, I don't know if it's original or not. It probably is, just judging by the condition, unless they bought a really, really poor reproduction. It's not in the best of shape. It's very presentable. I hope you can see that it is. But you can see, like, this seam here is starting to come off. And then one back here. It looks good. There's some staining in there by the, where you're on the dead pedal, what you would call the dead pedal, the box section, that's a dead pedal. Door handles, window cranks were all re-chromed. At some point, this might be easier if I get in the back of the car. Let's see here. Oh boy. Now I see why my kids hated riding in this car. So, that's a little bit better. At some point, I believe a previous owner had the dashboard recovered in leather. It's got that seam around the front edge of it, which looks great, but I don't think that's supposed to be there. I don't think that's original. So, in any case, it's in good shape. No reason to mess with it. The steering wheel, like all steering wheels, are split. I did put a cover on it. Hopefully you think that cover's a little bit nicer than the $5 Kmart ones. It was pretty expensive, and it's meant to look like a factory steering wheel. Horn button is in good shape. They're hard to find, uncracked. Gauges were all sent out and rebuilt by West Valley Instruments. New lenses had to be made for the speedo and tachometer. The water and oil temperature gauge was recalibrated with new Borden tubes, and all the other gauges were rebuilt and calibrated with the original lenses. Air conditioning works. I actually had the vent balls and the faceplate sent out and re-chromed and refinished. It actually works really, really well. I'm going to have a video of that when we do our startup and all that. Blows cold, doesn't need a charge. The air conditioning system is out of a later 1800 E or ES. The earlier style was one that is a little bit less integral looking to the dash. This is the later style. I think it looks nicer, works better. It took a bit of fiddling on my part to fit it in there and get it working, but it works great. The console is also from a later 1800E or ES. These cars had no console. They had that little coin purse or coin tray, which was fairly useless. And I'm sorry, with a car this cool, you need a place to keep your sunglasses. So I got a console out of a later 1800 and I installed that. The radio is a Blaupunkt Köln. Very nice unit, sounds great. Has an auto seek function, which is really neat when it works, which is maybe 50% of the time. Kind of works similar to the old, what do they call them, the Wonder Bar radios that Chevy used to have. Was that what they were? I can't remember. But that works pretty well too. So all the gauges are working. Everything works, and I mean that in every sense of the word. I want to say that everything works. This is not one of those cars I'm foisting off on somebody with all these problems or anything like that. I'm very, very anal retentive about making sure all of the little things in this car work. Let me get out of the back and okay. Let's do like a quick startup. Actually, we'll just run through some of the electrical stuff here. Starting left to right. Wipers work. Washer does work. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear the pump pumping on the video. Right now it's out of fluid though. And I will say that the pump needs to be primed before you use it. So honestly, for as often as I drive in the rain and need to wash my windshields, I don't bother to keep it filled because the pump where it's located doesn't self-prime itself. Lights all work. You won't be able to see them during the day if I turn them on here. You can hear the fan running right now. Air conditioning fan, 3 speeds. Hopefully you can hear that. Let's start it up. It's kind of cold right now, in case you couldn't tell by the gauges. The oil and water temperature gauges do work perfectly well. Just want to point out that they're cold right now. And you can see the other gauges also work, including the clock. I forgot to mention the clock. The clock works. Show me another 1800 where the clock works. Air conditioning, I'm going to have to run inside to get a thermometer for that. But you might want to take my word for it. It is blowing frigidly cold. And it's pretty neat because this is kind of a temperature setting. So right there you can feel it click off. So it'll cycle the compressor on and off to maintain the temperature inside the car as based on the return going into the fan, the return air that it sucks back from the car, which is actually really kind of neat. Let's open the hood. Get my back to the sun here. So, engine runs beautifully. Carburetors rebuilt, fresh rebuild. Pieced together everything myself. The car had a Weber on it when I got it. Got rid of that as soon as humanly possible. This right here is a solenoid for the air conditioning. Since this is a carbureted car, 9 times out of 10, a car with fuel injection will just automatically fluctuate its fuel air and idle to stay running with the air conditioning on. Carbureted car obviously can't do that, so what I have is this solenoid that when the AC is on, it'll just hold the throttle open a hair. And that actually works really well, just to keep the idle up with the air compressor running. AC compressor, excuse me. What else here? AC compressor is a later model Sandin style compressor, rotary. The radiator I'm not real fond of, to be honest with you. I could do without the boy racer look, but the original sprung a leak and was very, very, very expensive to fix. And this was less expensive and works better, so I ran with it. Looks under the hood aren't real critical to me, in case you couldn't tell. The one thing I think is a real kind of disappointment under the hood is the wiring harness. All the old cloth has long since disintegrated, so it turned into like a bundle of wires. And I cleaned it up as best I could, but you know, you kind of need electricity. It's all there and working, just kind of doesn't look all that pretty. Ignition, the distributor was totally rebuilt by Jeff at Advanced Distributors. It's got a Crane Fireball ignition that you can see right there. Not the way I would have gone. I probably would have gone with a Pertronix or just left points in it, but it was on there when I got it and it works. My only real issue with it is the looks. I don't really want that ugly box under the hood, but if that's the case, I'll live with it.